Valerian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their ships were faster than light itself. Their weapons could crack planets. Their diplomats spoke 1,700 languages fluently. They had conquered, absorbed, or allied with every spacefaring civilization they encountered. Then they found Earth. Commander Zelric stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, staring at the blue-green world rotating peacefully below. His 4 eyes narrowed in satisfaction. The planet was perfect, abundant water, diverse ecosystems, and primitive enough that the conquest would be ceremonial at best. "Begin standard first contact protocol," he ordered, his translator broadcasting his words across the command deck. "Deploy observation teams. Scan their communications. Assess military capability." His second officer, a cautious female named Thera, consulted her data pad. "Commander, their technology is remarkably limited. They've barely left their own moon. No faster-than-light capability. No energy shields. Their most powerful weapons are chemical explosives." Zelric's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Then we proceed to phase 2 immediately. Summon their leaders. Explain that they are now protectorate members of the Valerian Empire. Standard terms. They provide resources and labor, we provide security and technology." It was the same speech the Empire had given 1,000 times. It always worked the same way. The primitive species would be awed by Valerian power, grateful for Valerian generosity, and eager to join the galactic community. The transmission was set. Within hours, representatives from something called the United Nations agreed to meet with Valerian diplomats. Zelric felt a flutter of satisfaction. Another smooth conquest. Another world added to the Empire's eternal glory. The meeting was held aboard the Dominion in a chamber specifically designed to overwhelm primitive species. Holographic displays showed the vastness of Valerian territory. 3-dimensional maps revealed thousands of conquered worlds. The room itself was engineered to make visitors feel small and insignificant. 7 humans entered the chamber. They did not look impressed. The lead human, an older male with silver hair and tired eyes, introduced himself as Secretary General Chen. He thanked the Valorians for their hospitality in a flat, emotionless voice that suggested he was not actually thankful at all. Zelric began his prepared speech. "People of Earth, you stand at a crossroads. You may join the Valerian Empire peacefully and share in the prosperity of our civilization. Or you may resist and face consequences your world cannot survive. The choice is yours, but I assure you, there is only one rational decision." Chen listened without expression. When Zelric finished, the human reached into his jacket and retrieved a small paper booklet. He placed it on the conference table. "We appreciate your offer," Chen said. "We would like to make a counteroffer." Zelric's confusion was mirrored across every Valerian face. Counteroffer? The word itself seemed absurd. What could these primitives possibly offer an empire that spanned galaxies? Chen slid the booklet forward. "This is a proposal for a mutual trade agreement. Non-exclusive, non-binding with renewable 5-year terms. We provide certain raw materials and cultural exchange opportunities. You provide limited technology access and educational partnerships. There are 47 pages of terms, all negotiable." The chamber fell silent. Zelric stared at the booklet as if it were radioactive. You wish to negotiate?" "Of course," Chen said. "That's how civilized species interact, isn't it?" Thera leaned close to Zelric. "Commander, this is unprecedented. No protectorate species has ever." "I am aware," Zelric snapped. He looked back at Chen. "You do not understand your position. We are offering you protection. Prosperity. A place in the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known." "We're not interested in protection," Chen replied calmly. "We're perfectly capable of protecting ourselves. We're interested in trade. Partnership. Mutual benefit. Not subjugation dressed up in pleasant language." The words hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. Zelric felt his breathing quicken. In 3,000 years, no species had ever rejected the Empire's offer. The very concept was unthinkable. He attempted to recover his composure. "Your military is primitive," he said coldly. "Your technology is centuries behind ours. You cannot possibly defend yourselves against us." Chen smiled then, a strange expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Commander Zelric, humanity has been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. We've refined violence into an art form. We've built weapons that can end all life on our planet 100 times over. And we've chosen, through great effort and sacrifice, not to use them on ourselves anymore." He stood, smoothing his jacket. "But make no mistake, If you attack us, you will face something your empire has never encountered before. You will face a species that understands warfare better than you understand physics. And you will lose. The humans left the chamber. Zelric stood frozen, his mind racing. The arrogance. The audacity. The complete lack of proper fear. Commander? Thera asked quietly. Your orders? Zelric stared at the paper booklet still lying on the table. Somewhere in the back of his consciousness, a tiny voice whispered a warning he wasn't ready to hear. He ignored it. The invasion of Earth began 3 days later. Zelric had requested reinforcements and received them. 4 additional dreadnoughts joined the Eternal Dominion in orbit. The largest invasion fleet assembled in 2 centuries, all for one stubborn little planet that didn't understand how the galaxy worked. We will make an example of them, Zelric announced to his command staff. When the other protectorates see what happens to those who refuse the Empire's generosity, there will be no more dissent. The strategy was simple. Disable Earth's primitive satellites. Destroy their military installations with precision strikes. Occupy their major cities. Accept their inevitable surrender. The whole operation would take less than a planetary rotation. The fleet powered weapons and prepared to fire. That's when things started going wrong. The first indication was subtle. Targeting systems began reporting strange data. Multiple contacts appearing and disappearing across Earth's surface. Thera frowned at her console. Commander, sensors are detecting unusual readings. I'm seeing signatures that resemble defensive installations? But they weren't there an hour ago. Impossible, Zelric said. They don't have the technology to. The first missile hit the Dominion's forward shield at 17,000 kilometers per hour. It was primitive. Chemical propulsion. Crude guidance systems. The kind of weapon the Valerian Empire hadn't worried about in centuries. But it was fast, and there were hundreds of them, launched from locations across the planet's surface simultaneously. The shields held, but alarms shrieked across the bridge. Evasive maneuvers. Zelric shouted. Return fire. But the missiles kept coming. Thousands of them. Launched from mobile platforms that appeared, fired, and vanished before Valerian targeting computers could lock on. The humans were using their planet's atmosphere as a shield, hiding in the distortion and electromagnetic noise their own civilization generated. One frigate's shields failed under sustained bombardment. Primitive missiles tore through its hull. The ship listed, trailing atmosphere and debris. They're coordinating. Thera reported, her voice rising. Every launch site is synchronized. They're sharing targeting data across their entire global network. Zelric felt ice forming in his circulatory system. The humans weren't fighting like a primitive species. They were fighting like they had done this 1,000 times before. Every move was calculated. Every strike was precisely timed to maximize damage and minimize exposure. The dreadnought Glorious Purpose attempted to descend into lower orbit for a closer strike. Human missiles swarmed it immediately. Not enough to breach shields, but enough to drain power reserves at an alarming rate. Then something extraordinary happened. The missiles stopped. For exactly 45 seconds, no new launches appeared on sensors. The Valerian fleet, battered but intact, began to regroup. Then Secretary General Chen's face appeared on every display aboard every Valerian ship. Commander Zelric, Chen said calmly. That was a demonstration. We've now depleted approximately 3% of our available military resources. You've lost 1 ship and suffered damage to 3 others. We calculate that if this engagement continues, your fleet will be combat ineffective in approximately 7 hours. Zelric stared at the transmission in disbelief. However, Chen continued, we don't want to destroy your fleet. We want to trade with your empire. So I'm going to offer you a choice. You can continue this attack and lose everything. Or you can retreat, return to your superiors, and explain that Earth is interested in diplomatic relations on equal terms. You're bluffing, Zelric said, though his voice lacked conviction. You can't possibly have enough weapons to. Chen's expression didn't change. Commander, we've been preparing for hostile alien contact since we first left our atmosphere. We've run simulations, built contingencies, scattered defense systems across our entire planet. You're not the first empire to threaten us. You're just the first to actually arrive. Behind Chen the image shifted. It showed massive underground installations. Mobile missile launchers disguised as civilian vehicles. Orbital defense platforms hidden in debris fields. Rail guns concealed in mountain ranges. We call this defensive plan the Outer Wall, Chen said. Every nation on Earth contributed to it. We built it while fighting amongst ourselves, always knowing that someday someone like you would come. He leaned forward slightly. You invaded Earth expecting a primitive species that would be awed by your power. Instead, you found a species that has spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. We know every strategy you might attempt because we've already used them on each other, and we've built defenses for all of them. The transmission showed footage of human conflicts, chemical warfare, nuclear detonations, orbital bombardment simulations, biological weapons, psychological operations, a comprehensive catalog of horrors the humans had inflicted on themselves and then learned from. So here's the situation, Shin said. You can continue fighting and learn firsthand why humans are dangerous. Or you can accept that Earth is not a protectorate. We're a sovereign world offering partnership. The choice, as you said, is yours. The transmission ended. Zelric stood on his bridge, surrounded by damaged systems and frightened officers. For the first time in his career, he didn't know what to do. Commander? Thera asked quietly. Orders? Zelric looked at the planet rotating below. Beautiful. Deadly. Utterly unpredictable. Retreat, he whispered. Signal the fleet. We're withdrawing to safe distance. The Valerian High Council convened an emergency session when news of the failed invasion reached the capital world. Commander Zelric stood before them, preparing to explain the inexplicable. The chamber was ancient, carved from living crystal that recorded every session held within it. 3,000 years of conquest and expansion were embedded in these walls. 3,000 years of perfect victories. Until now. High Counselor Vraxa, eldest of the council, fixed all 6 of her eyes on Zelric. Explain how a primitive species repelled an invasion fleet. Zelric had spent the journey back preparing his report. He'd analyzed the engagement from every angle. He'd consulted with tactical experts and historians. The conclusion was unavoidable, though he still barely believed it. Honorable Council, Earth is not primitive. They've developed along a different evolutionary path than any species we've encountered. While we mastered interstellar travel, they mastered warfare. While we built an empire through superior technology, they survived by becoming the most dangerous species on their own planet. He displayed the data. Human history was a continuous chain of conflicts. Wars fought over territory, resources, ideology, religion. They'd weaponized everything from rocks to atoms. They'd invented strategy, tactics, logistics, psychological operations, and 1,000 other concepts the Valerian Empire had never needed to develop. They fight amongst themselves constantly, Zelric continued. Not because they're primitive but because they're competitive. Every conflict makes them stronger. Every war teaches them new lessons. By the time we arrived, they'd spent millennia preparing for exactly the kind of invasion we attempted. Counselor Thrain, the military strategist, leaned forward. You're saying we can't conquer them? I'm saying an attempted conquest would cost more than the planet is worth, Zelric replied carefully. They have no interstellar capability, but they've fortified their home world to a degree that's unprecedented. They've hidden weapons in every environment. Mountains, oceans, cities, orbit. They've prepared for every contingency. Vraxa's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Then we will return with overwhelming force. Crack their planet from orbit. Make an example that will echo across the galaxy. That would be a mistake, Zelric said, and immediately felt the temperature in the chamber drop. Contradicting the High Council was dangerous. But he pressed on. Destroying Earth would demonstrate weakness, not strength. It would show every protectorate that we fear species who refuse subjugation. It would invite rebellion. And worse, the humans have backup plans. Before we retreated, Secretary General Chen sent me this. He played the final transmission. Chen's face appeared above the council chamber. Commander Zelric, I'm sending this message on an encrypted channel that your superiors won't intercept. I want to give you information you'll need when you make your report. Earth has several automated systems designed to activate if our planet is destroyed. We call them dead hand protocols. They'll launch every ship we can build into the galaxy. Not to conquer. To survive. And to remember. Chen paused. Those ships will carry the complete history of humanity. Every culture. Every language. Every achievement. And every atrocity. They'll spread across the galaxy, settling worlds you haven't discovered yet, growing in places you'll never find them. And they'll tell every species they meet that the Valerian Empire destroys civilizations that don't submit. Another pause. But they'll also tell those species something else. They'll explain that Earth offered partnership, and the Empire chose annihilation instead. They'll make you into a cautionary tale. The Empire too rigid to adapt. Too arrogant to accept equals. Too weak to coexist with strength. Chin smiled then, that same cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. So I recommend you report accurately, Commander. Tell your superiors that Earth is dangerous, yes. But also tell them we're offering something the Empire has never had before. A genuine partner. A species that can contribute perspectives you've never considered. We don't want war. We want cooperation. But if you force us to choose, we'll choose survival. And we're very, very good at surviving. The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent. Finally Vraxa spoke. This is your recommendation? That we treat these humans as equals? I recommend we acknowledge reality, Zelric said. Earth cannot be easily conquered. Destroying it would create long-term strategic problems. But they've offered us an alternative. Trade. Cultural exchange. Scientific cooperation. Not as subjects, but as partners. Counselor Thrain's wings rustled in agitation. The Empire does not have partners. We have subjects and we have subjects to be. This is our way. Then perhaps our way needs to evolve, Zelric said quietly. The words hung in the air like heresy. But slowly, grudgingly, the council began to discuss possibilities. Not conquest. Not annihilation. But something unprecedented in Valerian history. Negotiation. 6 months later, the Valerian Empire and Earth signed the Treaty of Mutual Cooperation. It established trade relationships, cultural exchange programs, and scientific partnerships. Earth gained access to faster-than-light technology and advanced manufacturing techniques. The Valorians gained access to human strategic thinking, problem-solving methodologies, and creative innovations born from centuries of competition and conflict. Other protectorates watched carefully. Some requested similar treaty arrangements. The Empire, reluctantly at first, began to accommodate them. Commander Zelric was promoted to Ambassador Zelric. He spent his remaining years managing the complex relationship between the Empire and Earth. He learned to appreciate human music, though it remained chaotic to his ears. He developed a taste for a beverage they called coffee, though it caused mild hallucinations in Valorians. He even learned to understand human humor, though their concept of sarcasm remained baffling. On his final visit to Earth before retirement, Secretary General Chin hosted a small dinner in his honor. You know, Chin said over dessert, when your fleet arrived we were terrified. We put on a good show, but internally, we were certain you'd destroy us. Zelric's mandibles clicked in surprise. You seemed completely confident. We were gambling, Chin admitted. Betting that you valued efficiency over pride. That you'd rather negotiate than fight a costly war. We were right, but it was close. Your species takes incredible risks, Zelric observed. Risk is how we grow, Chin replied. It's also how we sometimes fail spectacularly. But we learn from failures as much as successes. Zelric considered this. The Empire has never failed. Perhaps that's been our weakness. Chin raised his glass. To new partnerships. And to the Empire's first productive failure. Zelric raised his own glass, filled with wine that would have been undrinkable to him a few years earlier. To humanity. The species that taught the galaxy that strength comes in many forms. They drank, and in that moment the galaxy changed just a little bit more.